Yes, okay, so this is a webinar, and it's everything you need to know about tech editing. So I'm going to take you through, basically, if you want to get started as a tech editor tomorrow, you'll have all the information that you would need to know like what you should be doing. We're just gonna give, hey, Heather and Paula, awesome guys. We're just gonna give it one more minute for people to jump in. Hey, Susan, from Manchester, so you're local. So yeah, we'll give people just another minute to jump in. So hopefully this won't take too long. If you guys have questions, you can put them into the chat at any time. And I will be answering questions. There will also be time at the end for a Q&A. So if I'm kind of in the middle of things, I might save your questions till the end. But if it's really relevant to what we're talking about, then I'll answer it right away. Feel free to ask anything. There's no question that's dumb or silly or something like I wouldn't want to talk about. So yeah, I'm totally happy to answer anything. Okay, so this is everything you need to know about tech editing. So here's what you can expect. Here's what you can expect. We're going to talk about what is a tech editor. We're going to talk about what does a tech editor do. We're going to talk about what skills and training are needed to become a tech editor. We're going to talk about what you should know before you take on clients. And then we're going to have a Q&A at the end. First, I want to introduce myself. So I'm Jolie. I am a tech editor, a designer, a perfectionist, a math nerd. I run Jolie Creates, which is my main business, and I also run the Woolly Hub. The Woolly Hub is the place for established and aspiring knitting designers and tech editors to learn how to build thriving businesses, and I help them do that. So, you see a slide that says, okay. So it looks like we have a little bit of a delay. So hopefully all the slides are catching up. Because I see in chat you say you can hear me and see me, and you see a slide that says you'll be live soon. So hopefully that's all catching up.
I'll go upstairs and wait.
Shh. Okay. Sorry, kids in the background. Okay, so yes, I've been tech editing for nearly 8 years now, and I've been teaching people how to tech edit for over 4 years. So I've been doing this a fairly long time, kind of know what I'm doing at this point, but you know, always room for improvement. But yeah, so this is something I've been doing for a while, something I'm really passionate about. I have a degree in mathematics, I'm quite nerdy, and I'm a perfectionist, which helps with the tech editing side. Okay, so let's dive into the material. What is a tech editor? Monica says voice, but no visual. Okay, let's see if I present to everyone. Let me know, make sure you can see the slides. If you can see the slide that says, what is a tech editor? Let me know. And we'll just make sure that everyone can see the current slide. I can probably check on my phone as well. Let's just double check that everyone's seeing what they should be seeing. Okay, Gemma says, yeah, awesome. Awesome, you're seeing just fine, cool. All right, just wanted to make sure. Okay, so what is a tech editor? Awesome, guys, thank you. Okay, so tech editing or technical editing, in terms of knitting patterns, which is what we're talking about, is the process of making sure that a pattern's ready for publishing. This means you're checking for errors, you're making sure the style is consistent throughout, you're making sure the pattern is as clear as it can be. You basically want to be making sure that from start to finish, the knitter doesn't encounter any problems. So that's what we're talking about. As a technical editor, sometimes abbreviated TE or just tech editor, your job is to basically proofread the pattern. The designer writes the pattern, the designer comes up with all the numbers, they send it to you. Pretty much it would look like exactly what it looks like when you buy a pattern, but it hasn't been proofed yet. And so your job is to do all the proofing to make sure that there's no mistakes in that pattern. Your job is to make suggestions and to point out errors, but it's not your pattern as a tech editor. And so you are not there to rewrite it. You are not there to have things the way you would like them. You're not there to change a bunch of things if you don't like the way they did the shaping or the fact that maybe they did, you know, something in a way that you wouldn't have done. You're not there to make the pattern the way you want it. You're there to guide the designer to making the pattern the best it can be while keeping their voice. And it's really important that you're able to keep their voice. So if you're a knitter, crocheter, you've bought a bunch of patterns, you'll notice that people do things differently. And so as a tech editor, we're not trying to make everyone just conform to like this one universal guideline. You're just really trying to help them be the best they can be. It is a high pressure job and it's not for everyone. So every time you make a mistake, you're hurting the designer you work for and you're hurting their reputation as well as your own. So it's important to build up slowly when taking on jobs, not take on anything that you're not confident you can handle. Obviously mistakes are gonna happen and pretty much every designer I've ever worked with is very understanding that mistakes do happen. Even as a tech editor, you're not perfect. And so you will miss things, but that's your job is to kind of not miss anything. And so anytime you do miss something, like you've messed up, it reflects badly on the designer because the person who's bought that pattern, they don't blame the tech editor, they blame the designer for publishing a pattern with an error in it. So it is kind of high pressure and certainly not everyone is cut out to do that. Like I said, I'm a perfectionist and that makes me a good tech editor, but it also makes those mistakes sting even more. So there's a fine line to walk, certainly. And one common misconception, tech editors don't knit the item. They just work through it theoretically in their head. You kind of visualize yourself knitting it and make sure it all makes sense. So I think a lot of people think that tech editors knit the thing. Absolutely not. A tech editor can do their job, let's say you have a garment, in 2 to 3 hours. So that kind of the whole purpose of a tech editor is to save time. Test knitters, on the other hand, do knit the item, but they need like weeks or maybe even a month or more to do their part of the process, to knit the item, to make sure the instructions are understandable by all different types of knitters. They take a long time to be able to do that. A tech editor needs to be able to go through the pattern in hours. And so to obviously do that, they can't knit the item. That's not their job. So what do they actually do? So if you were sent a pattern, here's the kinds of things that you should be doing. So you should make sure that the pictures match the instructions. You should make sure that all the descriptions make sense. You should make sure that the layout is logical and clear and the pattern is consistent in style. What does that mean? That means if they abbreviate the word repeat in one set of instructions, and then they should be abbreviating the word repeat throughout. So it shouldn't say, you know, repeat is normally abbreviated REP. It shouldn't say repeat abbreviated like 5 times and then repeat spelled out, you know, 5 other times. It needs to be consistent. If they capitalize the beginning of every row or round instruction, then that needs to be done throughout. It's very common for a designer to have typos and to miss things, to have it capitalized in one spot and not in another, things like that. So you want to make sure that how they've written it is consistent because that makes the pattern look really clean and professional and polished. You want to make sure that all the necessary charts and schematics are included. You want to make sure that the yarn details and needle information is correct, that all the needles listed are used and all the needles used are listed. So a lot of times a designer might list multiple sizes of needles, right? They'll have a small one and then a larger one, but they'll forget in the pattern to mention either which needle to cast on with or when to change needles. They'll just leave out that part. So you really want to double check, like, everything that they list. If they say, you know, you need 4 buttons, we'll get down to that in Notions, but you know, if they say you need a size 4 needle and a size 6 needle, you want to make sure that the pattern references when you're using what needle, and every time it has you cast on or pick up stitches or start a new section, it's letting you know what needle size it is, because it's very easy for the designer. The designer knows what they're doing. They're like, oh yeah, just pick up stitches for the button band, and they'll forget to specify, oh, that was supposed to be with the smaller needle. Oh, I meant to have them cast off with the larger needle. So you really want to be careful about those types of things. You want to check that the gauge seems reasonable for the needle and the yarn size. We're not there to like make sure that, you know, 24 stitches over 4 inches is always done on a US 4. But if you saw a pattern that said, you know, 16 stitches to 4 inches and it was knit on a US 1, something's off there. Maybe there was a typo and they meant to do 10. So, you know, you're checking for things like that. You're checking that all of the notions are listed in the correct amounts: buttons, ribbons, snaps, stitch holders. Stitch holders are often forgotten. So if a pattern says 4 buttons, you need to make sure that there's 4 buttons in the picture, and you need to make sure that the pattern has like 4 buttonholes. Maybe the designer just listed 4 buttons because that's what they used on the sample, but the pattern was written for multiple sizes, and so it actually needs 4 or 5 or 6 buttons depending on the size. All very common mistakes. Stitch holders is another one that always gets left out. The designer will say place the stitches on waste yarn or stitch holder, and they'll forget to actually list the stitch holder in the notions. So you want to check that if there's an abbreviation section, that all of the abbreviations used in the pattern are listed, and that all of the abbreviations in the pattern are, you want to kind of make sure it goes both ways, that all of the abbreviations they're listed in their pattern are, hold on. Boys, can you please go in another room? Sorry. Okay, so you want to make sure that all of the abbreviations in the abbreviations section are the ones being used in the pattern, and you want to make sure that anything's abbreviated in the pattern is spelled out in the abbreviation section. Now there is a exception to this. Sometimes designers won't list really common abbreviations. So they might not list knit or purl or knit 2 together. They might leave some of those out, and they might just have a special abbreviations section. But things that should always be included, things like cables. Cable, you know, C4F can mean, sometimes it means hold 4 to the front, sometimes it means hold 2 to the front because it's worked over 4 stitches total. Things like that that aren't clear really need to be spelled out in an abbreviation section. You want to make sure that the overall pattern makes sense. Can you improve the clarity of the pattern in any way? And again, this is something you have to do, you have to kind of walk a fine line. You don't want to rewrite the whole designer's pattern. That's absolutely crossing the line. But if something's really unclear, if something's made you pause, if you've read an instruction and you thought, oh, I don't know what that means, let me read it again, that's something that's worth pointing out to the designer. Maybe not necessarily rewriting it yourself, but just telling the designer, hey, this section right here tripped me up. And if it tripped me up, it's probably going to trip up another knitter. So you might want to relook at it. You want to make sure that the finishing instructions are listed and correct. Many times finishing instructions get left out. People forget to mention to sew up a seam, weave an end. You really want to look at those finishing instructions. You want to check that any charts match any written instructions and that the chart keys that are given are correct. Again, looking that all of the stitches used are in the key. Making sure if there's a right side and wrong side on the chart that the pattern tells you what to do on the right side and wrong side in the key. You want to make sure that the measurements that the pattern gives match the measurements that the designer provided. So if they say that the chest measures 32 inches on the schematic, you need to make sure that their numbers hold up, that you use the stitch count and the gauge and you get a 32-inch chest. That's kind of where a lot of the major errors end up, things not quite measuring what the designer says they should. You want to make sure that the pattern sizing is reasonable. So you're going to look at some sizing standards and you're going to make sure that the sizes that the designer uses roughly equal to some kind of sizing standard, right? So It's not going to be exact. Every designer has their own kind of sizing standards that they'll use and their own way of doing things. But if a sizing standard says that from the underarm to the wrist should be 18 inches and a designer has it measuring 10 and the picture shows a full length sleeve, then something funny is going on. So you're going to want to check things like that. And you're going to check overall that their grading is correct. You want to check that the right side and the wrong side rows are labeled correctly and that all their row numbers are labeled correctly. A lot of times, you know, they might say like work these last 2 rows X number of times and then work the row again once more, and then they'll go back to like row 10. Like you want to make sure that everything's adding up correctly with their row numbers, that if they end on a wrong side row, they don't have you then going to another wrong side row. It happens. It seems like it shouldn't, but it does. And lastly, of course, you want to check all the numbers. Every number in the pattern needs checking. The pattern repeats okay. Can you increase and decrease as they've said and get their stitch counts? Is the shaping all correct? All of those types of things need to be looked at. So if a pattern is has a stitch repeat of 10, then, you know, they have you cast on 110 stitches, then you know you're okay because 10 goes into 110. But if they have you cast on 112 and just work the repeat all the way around, then something's gotten messed up. Either their cast on numbers wrong or they've forgotten some edge stitches. So you're really kind of going through with a fine-tooth comb, looking at all of the numbers and making sure everything works exactly as the pattern says it should. Okay, so let's go on to what skills and training does a tech editor need? There isn't one specific path to becoming a tech editor, no matter what anyone tells you. Tech editors come from all different sorts of backgrounds. I have a maths degree, but that's the only training, I say that in air quotes, that I've had. Everything I learned was done on the job, just kind of using my knowledge of knitting and math to check patterns. Other people come from a whole different background. A lot of the people that I've worked with might have an English or communications degree, so they're really good with, they're used to like proofreading other types of documents, and then they kind of just apply that and learn the math to proofread knitting patterns. Or they might not have any kind of educational background, but they might just have 20 years of experience working in a yarn store providing pattern support. So they know what a good pattern looks like and they know what kind of problems people come up against. Everyone comes from a different background and all of those backgrounds are valid. A lot of it comes down to personality traits. Are you analytical? Do you have a good eye for detail? Super important. Can you deal with multiple sets of numbers at once? So, you know, when you have a lot of different sizes being worked over different numbers of rows, can you handle all that? Can you handle all those numbers and keep track? You do want to be comfortable using spreadsheets and putting formulas into spreadsheets. It's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of headache if you can do all this with the spreadsheet. You do want to be a knowledgeable knitter and crocheter because you're going to use that knowledge to understand how shawls are constructed, how socks are constructed, how sweaters are constructed. You want to be familiar with different types of constructions, everything from garments to hats to socks. Now, it is okay if you have an area where you're not strong at, because you don't have to accept those types of patterns. So it's totally okay to be a tech editor who just does accessories and doesn't take on any garments. That's totally okay. You know, you don't have to be an expert in everything. You just have to be really comfortable with some area, and that's what you advertise yourself as. So I know people who are like extremely good with lace charts. They're really comfortable with complex charts, and so that's what they advertise themselves as. Okay, some things to think about before taking on clients. So you know what you should be doing. We've kind of gone over the things you should be checking when you get a pattern. So what are some things you really have to think about before you can take on clients? You want to know how many hours you can work a week, and you want to know if you can take on new clients. So really make sure this can fit into your life. You want to know what's your hourly rate. So you need to come up with a number. You're going to need to be deciding how and when you're going to invoice. So typically I invoice when the job is done and I use PayPal. You might have a different system that you like. You're going to decide whether you work with PDFs or Word documents. So again, there's pros and cons to both of those. Maybe you take on both, maybe you take on one. You're going to you're going to think about, are you going to make the corrections yourself? And by that, I mean, if a designer gives you a pattern and the sleeve cap is all wrong, are you the type of person who feels comfortable making all the corrections? Or are you the type of person who's just gonna say to the designer, hey, this sleeve cap's not working, I need you to recheck your numbers? There are pros and cons, again, to both of those options, and different designers will prefer different things. You need to decide what kind of tech editor you're gonna be. You need to come up with a list of what you're gonna check for when you edit a pattern. So I kind of presented you with a list. You wanna make sure you have your own list. Some tech editors will check things like margin size, and they'll make sure it's readable when they print, and they'll check, they're really good with grammar and spelling, and they'll check all those things. Some tech editors are really picky, and some tech editors are a little bit more laid back because that's what their designers, their clients want. So kind of, again, think about what tech editor would you be. You need to think about your turnaround time. So if a designer emails you and says, hey, I have a pattern for you to edit, when am I gonna get it back? You need to know how quick can you turn it around. Are you the type of person who is pretty free, and so you could just do it the next night? Or are you quite busy and maybe you need a week or two? Those are things you have to know. So how many checks are you willing to do on a pattern? What this means is, a lot of times there's multiple rounds of editing. So a designer will send you a pattern, you make edits, you send it back to them, they review your edits, they send you another version, you review that version, and it goes back and forth. So you really want to decide, like, are you just going to do 2? Are you going to do as many as necessary, even if it takes quite a long time? I mean, every time you're emailing back and forth, that adds time, and you typically don't bill for that time. But again, that's something to think about. So I don't ever bill. That's one of my promises. I don't bill for times that we spend emailing, but my hourly rate might be higher than someone who does bill for email time. So it might all balance out in the end, but those are things to think about. And these are things designers are going to ask you. So again, you want to think about, do you have an area of speciality? Are you really good at lace shawls? Are you really into garments? Do you know a lot about seamless garments? Do you know a lot about socks? Like, what's your area of speciality? You really want to have one, because when you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. So you really want to make sure that you kind of know what you're really, really good at, and then designers will come to you for that. And then you also want to decide, what are you going to do if you go over your time estimate? So you want to have a plan for that. If a designer comes to you with a pattern and you quote them for an hour, and then you get to an hour and you're only halfway through, what are you going to do at that point? Make sure you know that before you take on clients. Okay, so if you guys have questions, now's the time to start putting them in chat. We've talked about what a tech editor is, what they do, what you should be looking for when you go over a pattern. And we've talked about all the questions that you need answering before you're ready to accept your first job. And I would highly encourage you to rewatch this webinar multiple times, write down the questions and take notes and write down the checklist. And if you feel like, I've totally got this, I could just take this information and I could take on my first client right now, then that's totally fine. And I'm so happy for you guys to do that. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they need to take a class either with me or with someone else to become a tech editor, because it's not true. If you are just, you feel like this falls into your wheelhouse, you're naturally good at all this stuff, I've explained to you exactly what a tech editor does, exactly what you should be looking for in a pattern. And so if you're ready to go, then absolutely go. If you feel like, hey, that's interesting, but I need a little bit more guidance, then this is where Learn to Tech Edit comes in. So Learn to Tech Edit is something I've been teaching for, like I said, for 4 years. It launched in March of 2013. And the course has definitely evolved over the years. When I started, I just emailed people lessons, like not even with a mailing list, like literally just from my inbox, emailed them lessons and emailed them assignments, and then they would email me back, and like it was just run via email. Over the years, I've obviously been improving it. I moved it over to Teachable so I don't have to email people. And so now this new version, which I'm calling Learn to Tech Edit Masterclass, is the biggest version I've ever offered. It's the most comprehensive with the most information. So the link's down at the bottom. It's thewoollyhub.com/learn-to-tech-edit. And so let's talk about what do you get if you took this course. You get 8 modules. We cover expectations of a tech editor, what you should do and what you shouldn't do, what's going to absolutely put off clients and what's going to make your clients really happy with you. It's important to get those clear because you don't want to make a bad impression. Tech editing is a whole lot about relationships and references. And so you build up relationships with designers and those designers recommend you to other designers and that's how you build up your client base. So we really want to get clear about the expectations so you're not kind of messing up and not getting recommendations where you might have done otherwise. We're going to talk about in Module 2, we're going to talk about understanding style sheets. These are things designers use and things they'll send to their tech editors, and I want to make sure you guys know what to do with them. So we'll talk about what is a style sheet, how should you use it, what happens if you don't get one, and we're going to talk about just all of the proofreading side, the thing that's not checking the numbers. Then we go on to Module 3, we talk about basic math checks. These are checking numbers, making sure everything adds up. We're looking at things like hats and really basic accessories. Then in Module 4, we move on to checking charts, comparing charts against written instructions, and we're really looking at this through the eyes of doing shawls. So this is kind of the lace shawl section. Then we go on to Module 5, which is socks and short rows, making sure you understand how to edit a sock pattern and in part, how to edit the short row part of a sock section, because that's where a lot of people get a little, you might understand how to knit short rows, but you might not have yet grasped how the whole number thing, how it eats up stitches and adds stitches. Then we're going to talk about Module 6. We go into checking garments. Garments are kind of big, I don't know how to describe them, just a lot of numbers. So we're going to talk about checking garments, set and sleeves, raglans, things like that. Just how to check all of those different types of numbers. And kind of, we don't go over how to do the construction, like you wouldn't be able to learn how to design it, but we do cover the construction in terms of what that means for checking numbers. Then we're going to talk about creating a tech editing business. So in Module 7, we're really talking about how to branch out and turn this into a business. What's your workflow like? What are all the things you need to be aware of, the basics of getting clients. And then in Module 8, we'll talk about branching out. So this is how to add income. If you can absolutely make an income from tech editing, a good income, but a lot of my tech editors want to start adding other services. So maybe you want to be an assistant, like a virtual assistant, doing social media, things like that. Maybe you want to add charts, you want to make charts for clients, you want to make schematics for clients. We're going to talk about how to do that. And so, yeah, that's kind of the basis of the course, really taking you through top to bottom, everything you need to know to like start taking on clients right away. You get video lessons, you get a Facebook community, you get 8 patterns to practice on. So these are actual patterns that I had sent to me, so you see them exactly as I got them with all of their errors, and then you get to edit them. You also then get to see videos of me editing them. So you see my whole process, everything I'm thinking, how I do the whole thing. Really takes you through, there's hats, there's shawls, there's socks, and there's 4 garments in there. So these are what people have said, have told me helps them feel really confident in taking on jobs, because this is like 8 jobs but there's no consequences if you make a mistake. Like there are 8 jobs that you can learn on. So, you have that under your belt when you go to take on clients. We'll also do 2 Q&A sessions. There's 1 a month. So the course is 8 weeks. So we'll do one after 4 weeks, and then we'll do one at the end. And you also get, the next time I run this course, you'll get access to those Q&A sessions as well. So if you fall behind for whatever reason, that's totally okay. You can just join in with the next round. You also get a 3-month free trial of Stitch Mastery. So this is not the demo version. This is the full version of Stitch Mastery. You get to use it for 3 months completely free. So this means you get to download it and activate this right when you buy the course. Well, when the course gets started on August 1st. And So you can use Stitch Mastery when you're doing these 8 patterns, when you're doing your practice jobs, and we can talk about how to use Stitch Mastery, which is a tool, a program that makes knitting charts, how we use this as a tech editor. It's extremely useful tool, and it's very generous of Kathy to give you guys this 3-month free trial. So this will help you work through the course, and then you get it a whole month after the course finishes before you have to decide if you want to buy or not. You also get inclusion in my database. So this is my tech editing database that has all of the students who have taken the courses. People ask me for this all the time because I don't take on as many clients right now. I have actually very few clients. And so when people come and ask me, hey, can you take on a job? I send them to my database. So this is a great way to really get started with your business. Now, if you want more, you can go VIP. And if you do that, you'll also get weekly office hours. So every week for 8 weeks, you also get the chance to get feedback on your assignments. This is something I used to offer, and then I had to take it away for various time commitment reasons. And now I'm bringing it back. So in the weekly office hours, you'll have been able to submit your assignments before the office hour. And then during the office hours, we can talk about your questions, and I'll also talk about your assignments. What could have been done better, what you guys did really good at. And if I have any notes that are quite personal, then I will just send them to you in an email. I'm not gonna critique you in front of a whole class. But this is something people found incredibly valuable, and I couldn't really find a way to make it work. And so what I decided to do is offer VIP spots, and they're limited. So there's only 15 VIP slots, just so I can really work one-to-one with people and do this feedback on assignments, let you know what you're missing, what you're doing right, what notes were phrased great, and maybe what kind of notes you're leaving that should be phrased a little bit gentler or kinder. We can talk about things you're missing, areas you need to improve on. So if you need that feedback, then you really want to think about the VIP option. At the end of the course, at the end of the 8 weeks, you'll also get a free 30-minute one-to-one coaching call with me. Someone says they can't hear me anymore. If you guys can't hear me, let me know. Someone else, if you can, then yeah, I will repeat myself if you guys can't hear me. So I'm actually going to flip the camera back to me. So if I stop, okay. So you guys should be able to see me now. And this is your chance to ask me questions. Literally anything goes. I will answer if you want to know more about tech editing, if you want to know more about how you can just go and do it on your own, about how you'll get clients, leave them in the comments. This is the time to do that. So I'm just going to make sure no one's sending any comments in via email. Okay. Looks like I'm getting thumbs up, so it looks like you guys can hear me okay. So yeah, so does anyone have any questions about tech editing, about the course? If you are watching the replay, you can just email me. So just reply to the email that sent you to this replay, or if you're watching on YouTube, it's hello@joliecreates.com. Send me an email and I will get back to you that way. If you're watching this on my site, so thewooliehub.com, there's a link right below the video to take you to the course page if you want to look at it further. But yeah, if you're watching the replay and you have questions, don't put them in the chat box. Send me an email. So does anyone watching live have questions? I'm going to give you guys a minute to catch up. I know there's a delay. So I know we have some people, well, I can see we have quite a few people watching. So again, I know there's a delay and I'll just give you a minute to catch up and put your questions in. Okay, so someone says, how long after the course do you think I'd be making money? Not a full salary, just money. It's going to take you a while to start getting clients. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be like, oh, you can make your money back right away. You have to put yourself out there and you have to establish yourself as a tech editor. Now, the thing is, when you finish the course, you'll be absolutely ready to start taking on clients. And we will talk about in that module 7 how to start getting clients. I'm not going to hold anything back. I will teach you. I have a full marketing for tech editors course, and I'm kind of bringing some of that in. So we'll really talk about the essential things you need to do to start getting clients. And I'm going to tell you it involves social media. If you are not willing to be on social media, you are not going to get clients, particularly Instagram. If you are not willing to spend time on Instagram in a way that I teach you, I'm not going to just be like, just go on Instagram. I will tell you exactly what to do. If you're not willing to spend any time marketing, it's going to be a really hard time getting clients. But as far as how quick do I think you'll be making money? I would think you'd have your first client within a month. I'd be surprised if you followed all my advice and actually did the work and you didn't have a client within a month. I'd be very surprised. Okay. Oh, the other thing I want to say about that is a lot of my tech editing students start trading services with other students. There's a lot of, and this goes on to the second question, but there's a lot of tech editors who are also designers. And so in the Facebook community that we have, it's not the Woolly Hub, it's a separate group just for Learn to Tech Edit students. There will be students who are tech editors who are also designers who like to use other people in the group as their tech editors. So that can be a way to kind of kickstart. So yeah, I have a bunch of tools to help you get clients, and I can't make any promises because I don't 100% know how long it's going to take you to get clients. I just know that I have some really kick-ass strategies, and I've seen my students have really good results. Okay, so the next question is, I'm not a designer and have no intention to become one. Is this a disadvantage to being a tech editor, getting clients, etc.? No, it's absolutely not. It is true that a lot of tech editors are also designers, and that's because it's very hard to make a living from designing. Not impossible, but it's challenging because designer takes, I lost my train of thought. Designing takes a lot of time, right? Designing takes, it takes like a month, right, to knit the whole design. Tech editing is quick. So a lot of designers use tech editing to supplement their income. But it is not the reverse, right? Like tech editors don't need designing to supplement their income. Tech editors don't need designing to establish themselves as an expert. So it's not that tech editors fall into designing, it's that designers fall into tech editing. It is not a disadvantage. I know a lot of my students don't design, and to be honest, I think the biggest players are not designers because they have more time. Like if you're a designer who does this on the side, then you really focus on designing and you just try and use clients tech editing to supplement that. If you're just a tech editor, then you really go in all on being a tech editor. And so no, don't think it's a disadvantage at all. Okay, so Monique says, is this masterclass in addition to the course I took with you last spring, or is it a substitution? Oh my goodness, Monique, thank you for asking me that because I completely forgot. I have to send out an email. So if you have taken Learn to Tech Edit and Learn to Tech Edit the Next Steps, you automatically get added into Masterclass. So if you have taken both of those courses, you automatically get added to Masterclass. If you have taken one, if you just took Learn to Tech Edit, there's going to be an upgrade option. And I will email everyone right now because I 100% forgot and I am so sorry. I sound like it's been a long time. I just opened the doors on Saturday night. So I forgot to tell current Learn to Tech Edit students that this is an upgrade because, so want to be clear, when I update a course, when I add new videos or I add a bonus, everyone gets access to that. If I just tweak what already exists, everyone gets access to that. This Learn to Tech Edit Masterclass is a brand new thing, and it's combining what was in Learn to Tech Edit with what was in the Next Steps. Those two brought together, plus a little bit of what was in Marketing for Tech Editors. So Marketing for Tech Editors goes super deep into like newsletters and websites and social media and blogging, and that's a little bit overwhelming for this course. It's kind of too much to put in. So what I'm doing is taking out, well, okay, you don't really need a blog. You don't really need a newsletter list. But you do need to be on social media. And so we're kind of taking out the essentials from marketing for tech editors and putting them into this course so that people really feel like they can leave and get clients. I don't want people to get finish the class and be like, great, you taught me to be a tech editor. I don't know what to do anymore. I want to make sure people have a strategy for getting clients when they leave this. So that's why there will be an upgrade option, because this is a combination of Learn to Tech Edit and the follow-on course, Learn to Tech Edit the Next Steps, plus new material, plus stuff for marketing for tech editors. So it's a big thing. So I will email you. If you have purchased Learn to Tech Edit, I will send you an email about how you can upgrade for a lot less than just buying it outright. Obviously, it's an upgrade. You can taking into consideration that you've already purchased one course. So I will get that out to you. Yes. So to answer your question, it's neither an addition or a substitution. It's a brand new thing that kind of incorporates some of what you've learned, some new stuff, and some marketing stuff. So plus I do want to say, there are, what am I saying? I keep losing my train of thought. There's material in this that's brand new that no one has ever taken before. And that's the other reason why it's a new course. Like the whole Life as a Tech Editor module and the Going Beyond, it's all brand new material. So yeah, so there is some new material. But yes, I will send an email out about upgrading. You already bought the Schematics Bundle mini course. Awesome. If you feel like you've already bought something that is now included in this, send me an email, okay? Like, I am not trying to just take money from people. If you feel like you've already bought something, Learn to Tech Edit or a version of Learn to Tech Edit in the past, then we can talk about upgrading. Because I don't want people to just be like, oh, I've already bought half this material, like that kind of sucks for me. No, it was always a plan to do an upgrade option. So does anyone else have any questions? We're kind of coming up on the 45-minute mark, and I want to be respectful of your time. And so I'll give you another minute to put in questions. I hope I've covered, let me cover common concerns. You do get lifetime access to the material. So everyone who bought Learn to Tech Edit, right? I'm no longer selling that. I'm no longer selling Learn to Tech Edit the Next Steps. They haven't lost access. Their course is still there. It's just not for sale. The same thing would happen with this. I'm not planning on discontinuing it. If I ever did, you still get the course material. If any little tweaks I do, you get added. The course gets upgraded. So you do get updated material. So question, I'm a fledgling designer and have a background in editing and publishing. I'm comfortable proofreading different kinds of publications. You want to take your course to help me do a great job of preparing my own patterns for publication and to earn income from tech editing as well. Do you think it's possible for a tech editor who knows tech editing to edit their own pattern? No. You can absolutely use this course to make your patterns better and to make the job of your tech editor easier. Because if, let's say you write your pattern, you put it aside for 48 hours, then you come and look at it with the eyes of a tech editor, it's going to be in so much better shape. But it is not perfect because you are the designer and you know what you meant to write. And it's very, very easy to see what we meant to write and not what we actually wrote. So I 100% don't advocate designers tech editing their own pattern. I 100% think you need to hire a tech editor. But does being a tech editor make you better able to check your pattern? Yes. And if your pattern is clearer and you've done a really good job of with your numbers and your grading, and oh, my tech editor needs a schematic because I find that really useful. Are the jobs for the job of your tech editor going to be quicker and therefore cheaper? Yeah. So Yes, lots of tech editors swap services. So typically what happens with tech editors is they have a really good friend who's a tech editor, and you should always make friends because, yeah, let me tell you why you should make friends with tech editors, even as a tech editor. One, you're going to get jobs that are not in your wheelhouse. So if you like accessories and baby garments, you make friends with a tech editor who really likes adult garments, and then you guys swap. Right? You have a client who comes in and says, oh, I have this garment. You say, oh, I don't do garments, but I have a really good friend who does. And you send them to your friend. Your friend gets someone coming in with an accessory, a shawl. And they're like, oh, I don't really do shawls, but my friend does. And they send them to you. So you need to have that kind of mutual relationship with someone. Second, if you're a designer, you make friends with another designer who also tech edits. And then you swap. So you don't really have to exchange money. You can do, depends. But you could just swap. You could just say, hey, I have this pattern for you. Can you edit it? And they say, yeah, here's one for you. And you kind of just swap services. Network, absolutely. So much of tech editing is networking. The jobs that I've gotten as magazine editors and things, they're because of who I knew. They're because I'm great at my job, but they're also because I've worked with a lot of people who were then able to recommend me to a lot of things. So I've worked with book publishers. I've worked with multiple magazines, I think 3. I've worked with yarn companies, yarn dyers, and like hundreds and hundreds of designers at this point. So it is a lot about networking and connections, which is why I just want people to like be really good at it and be really serious about it, because if you mess up, word gets round. And it's not, I don't want that to put people off. It's not like you make one mistake and you get a big black mark next to your name. But you know, if you're not professional, if you overcharge, and by that I mean like seriously overcharge, it gets round. And I don't mean overcharge an hourly rate. I mean like when you spend 12 hours on a hat that everyone knows should take 1 hour, or when you tell the designer it's going to take an hour and then you bill them for 4 hours, things like that, they get round. And so I'm trying to teach people how to do the actual job, because it's a fun job. It's a job that we always need more of. We always need more tech editors. But I'm also trying to teach them how to do it with like, you know, professionalism. So that's kind of the role I play in all of this. And my tech editors have gone on to do great things. My tech editors, a bunch of them have worked for magazines. They work for yarn companies. A couple of them have set up their own businesses, like they're proper, like they're not just like, oh, I tech edit a few hours a week, but like they're proper running they have like a brand name and like running a business, offering tech editing services and other services, like set up companies. So yeah, and I'm going to be 100% honest. Not everyone who goes through the course goes on to become a tech editor, right? Like some people go through the course and then they're just like, man, that was not for me. And I can't control that. I can't help that. I've tried to give you an idea of what the tech editing process is like. It's a lot of number crunching. It is a lot of attention to detail, like being able to spot, you know, that a capitalization is missing, that an abbreviation hasn't been there that should be there. It's like a lot of small details. So we do get a percentage of people, there's a percentage of people who never complete the course. They just get halfway through and they're like, no. There's a percentage of people who complete it and just are like, I'm really grateful for that information and I'm going to use it as a designer, but I don't want to do this as a business. There's a percentage of people who finish the course who then try and get clients, but half-ass their marketing, don't really put in the effort. They kind of just think, oh, I made a website, that should be enough. Or, oh, I listed my services on a Ravelry thread, that should be enough. And so they don't get clients because they're not putting in the work. And so that's definitely a percentage of students. And then we have our percentage of students who do the course, who love it, who are serious about it, who put in the work, and who are getting clients. And you can read them. I mean, you can go look at if you're on the woollyhub.com, there's a past students page. You can see I've been asking people to send me in photos and feedback. And so you can see there what a select few of people say about the course. Or you can go to the tech editing database. So it's past students, and there's a link right at the top to my database. Email any of them and see what they thought. Like, those are all people who've taken the course who are like actively trying to find clients. Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to wrap it up there because we are getting close to that. We've gone over the 45 minutes now. If you have questions, any questions, send me an email, hello@joliecreates.com, or you can send me a Facebook message. You can send me an Instagram message, either at Jolie Creates or at the Woolly Hub. Either of those, send me a message and let's talk it out. I want to tell you that my number one golden rule of business is that I want to create success stories, and that's all that matters to me. And so part of that means I never recommend my courses to someone who I don't think it's right for, because it doesn't do me any good to have those percentage of people who take my course and hate it. Like that's not serving me, and that's not serving you guys. So I promise you, I would never sell you something that I don't think is a right fit, because it doesn't do us any good. I want 100% success rate. I want 100% of the people who buy this course to love it and to go on to build thriving tech editing businesses if that's what they want in the end. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I hope you guys have a lovely evening. The course starts August 1st, so doors will be closing July 31st, and the VIP spots are limited, and once they're gone until I open it again. Have a great night, guys. Bye.